Okay, so hi everybody. This is the third episode of an interview with, and we are interviewing the UK Chief Instructor of Kaze Arashi Ryu, Paul O'Callaghan. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Hi, Andy. Not too bad, thank you.
Would you like to just introduce yourself for us all, please?
Yeah, as Andy said, my name's Paul O'Callaghan. I've been training Kaze Arashi Ryu about 30 years now. Martial arts, that's coming up to 41 years in martial arts. And I started off in karate and eventually ended up in Kaze Arashi Ryu.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So, how did your martial arts journey begin?
I've got my mother to thank you for that. She kept pestering me to go to a karate lesson because my cousin was doing karate. At the time, I was into all kinds of sports, football, running, and things like that, and I wasn't really interested in karate. There was no need for me to do it, I felt. But my mum kept pestering, and she said, just go down for one lesson, see if you like it. And I did, and I was hooked from that day. So I've been doing martial arts ever since.
Wow. That's good. So is karate something that you did for a long time, or did you switch to something else? Or
I did for about 2 years. At the time, I was only like 10 years old, so 10 and a half. But after 2 years, I had a burst appendix, and it was quite bad, actually, to the point when it burst, I only had supposedly another 2 hours and I would have died because the poison was going around my system. So after that, I had the operation. I couldn't do any sports for 8 months. So it sort of got me down and I decided to look for something else. And at that time, I was only young, but I still had the mindset of I wanted to learn something like self-defense unarmed, but I was interested in the weapon side as well. So that led me towards Jujitsu, which I started training in.
All right. Okay. So what style of Jujitsu was it? Was it Japanese?
Yeah, it was with the World Jiu-Jitsu Federation. So Sensei Robert Clark, he wasn't my instructor, but he's the head of the system. And my instructor at the time was Tony Martin. He was a really good instructor. I achieved my first dan in that. Did my grading in front of Robert Clark. That was quite intimidating at the time because at the time I was only 18. And then after that, I sort of I got to a point where I was teaching, but then my instructor at the time, I don't know whether he had health problems, I'm not sure, but he was turning up less and less, and I was teaching the class more and more. And to my mind, I was still a youngster. I was still learning. Even though I had a black belt and I was 18, I was still learning. And I felt like, no, that's not me. I can't just teach and not carry on learning. So that's why I started looking elsewhere.
All right. So how did you find Kaze Arashi Ryu? What was your first introduction?
Well, as I said, I was looking for other things, and I seen an advert for a seminar. That's why it's always good if you're looking for something, just to try it and see if you like it. See an advert for something. Oh, I'll have a go there. It's always worth it because that's what I did, and I went down to the seminar with an open mind, and I was blown away, to be honest, because I was a black belt and I could do the techniques were similar. But the effectiveness was unbelievable. It was on another level. I was like, wow, I've got to learn this.
Yeah. So what in your opinion, I mean, obviously I'm a Kaze Arashi Ryu student myself, so it's always interesting to hear how other people explain their explanation of Kaze Arashi Ryu, because I sometimes can't find the words. So what was it about Kaze Arashi Ryu where you thought, wow, this is...
You see lots of martial arts where you've got to be physically fit, strong, athletic, which is good, you know, for health, but you can't rely on that because as you get older, and I'm at that stage now, you can't rely on it because the youngsters will be, because they're younger and fitter. What I found in Kaze Arashi Ryu was very minimal effort, maximum effect. So you've been in a position that over the years with the Sensei demonstrating the technique on you, takes you to the ground, and you see lots of martial arts doing that, taking somebody to the ground. But when somebody takes you to the ground, you're struggling to breathe. The pain is intense that you can't think of fighting back. The best thing you can do is try and relax to relieve the pain. That is on a different level to my mind, and that is what you need to do to an attacker, to take their mind away from fighting back. So it's like a psychological thing that, you know, you see lots of things ground and pound where people are taking somebody to the floor. You never see somebody taken to a point where they're affecting the mind.
Yeah.
And that's what I find is lacking in some martial arts, but a lot of the traditional ones, some of them have kept it.
Yeah, yeah. So, in your opinion, obviously you've done some karate, you've done some jujitsu, and now you're a very senior instructor of Kaze Arashi Ryu. How does Kaze Arashi Ryu compare to other arts?
I think for people, they've got to find what art works for them. Kaze Arashi Ryu is like any other art that it's not for everybody. You know, some people might see and think, "Oh, it's not for me." That's fine. We know we're not going to appeal to everyone. It fitted for me. I had everything that I was looking for. So I think when people are going out for martial arts, they've got to decide what they want out of an art, whether they want it for self-defense, whether they want to learn weapons, and you've got to be honest with yourself what you want it for. And my mind, when I was training Kaze Arashi Ryu, especially the higher levels, it takes you to the extreme where you're dealing with life and death situations, which you could come across in the street. You know, you hear so many people getting attacked, knife, you know, shot. And if you don't learn to deal with that stress in them scenarios, you'll come unstuck. It doesn't matter how fit and strong you are. If you come across that and you've never confronted it before, you're going to be on losing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. That actually, I've never really thought of it in that way. So, as you know, there's obviously like the style of jujitsu that you did. Was that more throwing, a little bit of striking, very little weapons, or was it?
I think it depended on the instructor you had, because I've seen other clubs did more weapons than what we did. What I found for myself, this is my view, the footwork for the weapons was different from the empty hand. And that's what I like about Kaze Arashi Ryu. Basically, everything you do, the footwork is the same, whether you've got any type of weapon, whether you've got a pencil or a pen in your hand, a sword, a staff, it's all the same. And in the heat of a fight, you're not going to be able to think, "Oh, I need this footwork, oh, I need that footwork." You've got to do it without thinking.
Yeah.
So that, to me, that's what worked for me. You know, empty hand, weapons, you do the same thing. The only difference is the mind changes, you know, with a longer weapon, a short weapon, or no weapon.
Yeah. So, with Kaze Arashi Ryu, what would you say there is like empty hand and weapons? Would you say the percentages are the same? There's as much weapons as there is empty hand, or would you say there's more of one?
We try to. It depends on the venue. You know, if you're in a venue with low ceilings, it limits you to not being able to use the longer weapons. I always we can split it up in different arts, like the kenjutsu. People just learn that. People just learn the jujitsu or the aiki jujitsu. People can learn it that way, but you only really get the essence of the style when you do all of them, and then you realize they all intermingle, and that's why, as I said, the footwork's the same, the movement's the same. It's just the mai that is different. Obviously, slightly different grips with the weapons, you know, a sword and a staff, but that's the only difference.
So would you say then that a certain weapons art would bring out a certain skill that another weapons art wouldn't, or an empty hand art of Kaze Arashi Ryu wouldn't? Are they all honing different skills, would you say?
Yeah, some people try to, and I don't think it works quite as much when they learn different. It's fine learning different arts, but they'll do eskrima, do judo, they'll do karate, completely different arts. You know, you've got different footworks, and they try and intermingle them. But you can't really do it if they've all got slightly different footworks, different mindsets, the way you're moving. It doesn't work as, my view, effective. Where you can't switch your mind from doing, oh, I'm doing this, oh, I'm doing that. You've only got one mindset, and in a fight or a conversation, it's going to be, you've got to react very quick, and things are going to happen. So you haven't got time to think. If you're thinking, that's when you're going to get struck. So a lot of it has got to be, you know, no mind, you know, like the Japanese say, no mind. That's what you've got to have to be able to do it reactively.
That's interesting. So Kaze Arashi Ryu has an art that runs alongside Aiki Jujitsu, which is the Atemi Jutsu. How, obviously, since during lockdown, we've probably been doing more Atemi than anything else. How effective would you say the Atemi Jutsu was comparing to other striking arts?
It's only when you get to the higher levels, I find, that you respect and understand what is behind them. The lower levels, like up to black belt, you'll see it and just think it's like a set of movements. Obviously, you are striking the body, but you don't really. I find the mindset of people under Okuwiri, the black belt, they'll be thinking of the technique and not really the body mechanics of why this is happening. Why it's only once you get to the higher levels you'll start understanding that. And again, the art can be split into hard and soft styles, where Kaze Arashi Ryu is like an internal art, so it's a different way. You know, we don't condition ourselves like the hard systems do, so we don't do any hard conditioning. Our strikes are basically strike an opponent that's going down already, so their mind is thinking, oh, balance, 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 bang. That's when we do the strike.
Yeah.
So that it has more of a devastating effect to the person you're striking, and you don't have to put as much emphasis, and also it's harder for them to counter it because they're thinking balance automatically. The body will, even if you try not to think of thinking you balance, if somebody pulls you in one direction or another, you'll automatically do it. It's an instinctive reaction that will happen, and that's what we play on an opponent.
Yeah. So does that differ from the Jujitsu that you did?
Yeah, the Jujitsu that I did was sort of karate style ish, not as obviously not like long strong stances like Shotokan. It was more upright, but they were similar.
Yeah. Okay, so as Kaze Arashi Ryu is a traditional family tradition, you mentioned earlier about Okuwiri. So what is the grading structure of Kaze Arashi Ryu? Because obviously Okuwiri is maybe something that people haven't heard of before.
Yeah. Okawiri translators, various translations, but we have it as entrance to secrets. They're not really secrets. It's basically you've learned the basics. Yeah, it's a black belt, but you've learned the basics of the techniques. And it's only once you pass that you can start understanding the principles behind what's happening, and then dealing with multiple attackers and things like that. And then after that is Mokoroku, which is catalog. In the past, it was basically anybody who attained that grade the name would be written in a catalog, you know. So that level is dealing with an opponent who's resisting. Okay, and a lot of it is multiple attackers. So we call it Marui. So we start off with like attackers either side, but then it builds up to one either side, one in front, and then eventually you're surrounded by 4 people around you. And we treat it as an exercise. It is an exercise, but it's developing other things like your peripheral vision. Too many arts concentrate on one-on-one in the ring, and so you're focusing too much in the front direction. If you do that, I've seen it many times, martial artists, boxers, you know, various people, they'll get, you know, smacked from behind on the back of the head by the mate or, you know, other people around them. So it's especially important to have that, build that awareness and your vision. So you're making your vision more aware. You're looking forward, but you're like looking through, and you can see movement. So it's like my instructor said, Blair Sensei, you're dealing with shadows, movement. So you're not focusing on what's happening, but you sense what's happening around you.
Yeah. Wow. So how the training of Kaze Arashi Ryu, so what level would be after Mokoroku? So there's Okawiri.
Yeah. So Mokoroku is like equivalent to 3rd and 4th then. And then the next level would be Benkyo, which is again equivalent 5th and 6th dan. Menkyo is dealing with a good fighter, somebody who knows how to counter your moves, so you don't panic when they counter. Eventually you build up to countering their counter. So a lot of the Tai Sabakis, the movements, you'll watch them and nobody will win. You'll back away from each other. And it's sort of like a game of chess, and it's all dealing with principles of, you know, if somebody grabs hold of your arm a certain way, you know, the body mechanics to relieve that pressure that they're creating on your arm, or the strike that they're doing toward you. So it's more, how can I say, like you get sensitivity in Wing Chun, where you're feeling what's happening, you're not looking what's happening with the arms. Right. This is our sort of practice, where as soon as you take hold of an opponent, you can feel what's happening. You can feel them counting, reacting, and you're dealing with that. You don't have to look to see that they're pulling their arm away. You can feel it.
Yeah.
So it's sort of that sensitivity training in Kaze Arashi Ryu.
So that's interesting. So you mentioned earlier about an internal martial art. So would you say that was more what Kaze Arashi Ryu is, the higher you get?
Yeah, because that's another thing that I like about Kaze Arashi Ryu. It's it doesn't rely on physical fitness. So you're destroying an opponent's balance, structure, mind, the higher you get, because there is a sort of spiritual side to it, that you're affecting a person's mind without them realizing it. And that's what you need to build and rely on as you get older. And if you're outnumbered, if you rely on strength and fitness and you've got 4 or 5 guys around you, you better hope that 2 or 3 of them aren't good, because, you know, you're going to have your work cut out. making an example of one person to make the others back away. That's, again, messing with the mind. It's all little tricks like this that needs to be developed. But you don't do that at a lower level, because if you do that at a lower level, it becomes scrappy because you haven't learned all the basics. So it's basically building on the basics you have, and then countering a good fighter, and then messing with the mind.
Yeah. Interesting. So as the UK chief instructor, where do you see, obviously we've just been through a 14-month pandemic and we're coming out the other side of it now, where do you see Kaze Arashi Ryu in the next 6 months to a year in the UK?
6 months. I can't wait to get training back again, and everybody, we're all going on seminars. That's what I'm looking forward to. Hopefully it's going to be a new start on things heading for the future. I find traditional martial arts like Kaze Arashi Ryu will struggle for the time being, because MMA is around, and it's the people that don't do martial arts see that on the TV and they're interested in that. I think that's the ideal, and it's sort of traditional martial arts are going to struggle. And I feel that traditional martial arts should get together and help each other out, and because there's a lot of benefit from traditional martial arts. For a start, you have what we call a warrior mindset, and it's different from going in a ring. You've got to be brave to go in a ring, because you're going to get elbowed to the face, and there's some nasty injuries when you see him in the cage. But a warrior mindset is slightly different, where it's when somebody's going to take your life, there's no judge there to stop the fight. If anybody gets too hurt, it's like your life is on the line, or maybe your wife or your friend, their life is on the line. You need to help them. It's a completely different mindset.
Yeah,
and that's what I like about traditional martial arts. And you can think, oh, we're not going to need that. We're never going to need that. We don't live in the past. We don't live in the battlefield anymore. But you look what's happening around. It is getting more violent society. So there may be a point in the future, near future, that it may be needed. Hopefully it never will. But it'd be good to keep that knowledge going, passing on, rather than getting lost.
Yeah, I agree. And such a small group of Kaze Arashi Ryu practitioners in the UK. I think us all sticking together, and even with, like you say, other traditional artists as well, and do one big seminar or something.
Yeah,
I think I'm like you. I'm chomping at the bit to be out there again and teaching and training. And so, do you have anything coming up in the next year, 2021? Any seminars or?
Nothing booked in as the moment, but we'd like to get some planned. I've mentioned that we'd like to get another advanced Menkyo training session together to get all the black belts together. I feel like we've been away from each other too long. Hopefully we can get Valer Sensei over, but again, with the foreign travel, we'll have to wait and see how that develops. But yeah, hopefully, I think this time out, in everything in life, to be honest, it makes you appreciate things more.
Yes.
So I think we'll appreciate each other more when we all get back together. Like, oh, it's great.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
So I think it'll be a good thing, to be honest.
Yeah. So if there's one thing that you've missed over the last 14 months, what is it?
It's going to sound weird, this. Contact.
Yes.
I find that martial arts, especially like internal arts like Kaze Arashi Ryu, Tai Chi and anything like that, you need to feel the resistance, the contact, the reaction of the opponent. If you don't do that all the time, you lose it. It's great doing kata and tai sabaki, but it's not quite the same.
No.
Even hitting bags, you can hit bags, but it's when somebody's moving, you've got contact with them, that you get that sensitivity and you develop it.
Yeah, I agree. So have you had the opportunity of doing any training during lockdown? Have you managed to do much or?
Not as much as I'd like. What I have been concentrating on is developing myself. So I have been doing quite a bit of qigong and Tai Chi. So as I'm getting older, I'm getting less fit, and you get the odd injuries, and your body's telling you you're getting a certain age. So I've been trying to develop my body, you know. So the qigong basically, you know, there's exercises for developing your lungs, your ligaments, your fascia, and I've been doing these type of things, and I have felt the benefit of it, to be honest. Yeah, I feel stronger now than I ever have, to be honest. I just put that down to, you know, it's not strengthening muscles. It's not like weight training. It's strengthening the muscles in the ligaments in the joints to make them stronger. And that's why it's called internal, because you don't see muscles develop. You've got strong ligaments and fascia inside,
Yeah,
and you'll feel that. And whenever you come across somebody who's quite high up in an internal art, they don't look anything, you know, physically, but when you push against them or they push against you, you think, oh, there's quite a bit of power there, but it takes you by surprise. Like, they don't look it.
yeah,
So it's like that hidden internal side. So I've been looking at that and concentrating on a lot of the atemi and weapons stuff that I can. Trying to do a bit with my son, but my son's only young, so I'm a bit limited with that. But
good. Yeah, interesting. So last question, really. Then,
yeah.
where do you see Kaze Arashi Ryu in the UK in the future?
Oh, there's a hope, and I hope it, you know, does well and goes forward. Um, I I think we will do well, but I see the future with your club, to be honest, because you're the only full-time professional instructor, and you have a lot of children in your club, and it'll be one of them that'll be the future chief instructor. Hopefully, you'll have quite a lot of students coming through, but yeah, that's where I see the future. One of your students and having clubs of their own.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool. That's great. That's a really good, informative interview, Paul. Thank you very much for coming on an interview with.
It's been a pleasure.
And yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you.